Gilded cage Victoria Peterson stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. Perfectly highlighted blonde hair, expertly applied makeup, diamonds glinting at her ears. All flawless, all hollow. At 32, she had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. Victoria, the car will be here in 20 minutes. Her husband's voice carried through their sprawling penthouse, impatient as always. Victoria applied another coat of lipstick. The same shade of red James had once complimented 3 years ago. She had worn it religiously since, though he had never noticed again. "Coming," she called back, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her designer dress. Downstairs, James Peterson was absorbed in his phone, thumbs tapping rapidly against the screen. At 38, he had already built and sold 2 tech companies, his current venture recently valued at over $2 billion. Success radiated from him like heat, his confidence, his imposing 6-foot frame in a perfectly tailored suit, his precisely trimmed dark hair with distinguished touches of silver at the temples. Victoria remembered falling in love with his intensity, his vision, his ability to make her feel like the only person in a crowded room when he focused those penetrating blue eyes on her. That had been 5 years ago, before the latest company, before the endless meetings and international flights, before she had become another beautiful acquisition in his collection. "We need to make an appearance at this fundraiser for at least 2 hours," James said without looking up. "The Jensen merger depends on making nice with their board members." "Of course," Victoria replied, reaching for her clutch. "I've reviewed the guest list and memorized the names of the key executives and their spouses." James glanced up briefly. "Good girl." The condescending praise made something twist inside Victoria's chest. Once she had been a promising photographer with her own exhibition at a small but respected gallery. That was where they had met. James had purchased her favorite photograph, a black and white image of an elderly couple holding hands on a park bench. He had told her it captured something essential about human connection. The irony wasn't lost on her now. "James," she began carefully, "I was thinking after the Jensen deal closes, maybe we could take some time off. Go somewhere together, just the 2 of us. Maybe that villa in Tuscany you mentioned last year." James finished his email before responding. "What would be the point of that? You know how busy things are right now." "To spend time together," Victoria said, fighting to keep her voice even. "To reconnect." James looked at her properly then, his expression softening marginally. "You're being sentimental again, Vicky. That's what vacations are for. I need you here looking beautiful and charming my business associates." He reached into his pocket and removed a small velvet box. "Which reminds me, I got you something to wear tonight." Inside lay a necklace, platinum set with sapphires that would perfectly match her dress. It was exquisite, thoughtful in its aesthetics if not its intention, and completely impersonal. Another beautiful thing for his beautiful wife. "It's lovely," she said quietly. James fastened it around her neck, his fingers brushing against her skin in what might have been a caress if there had been any warmth behind it. Victoria closed her eyes, remembering how his touch used to make her shiver with anticipation rather than resignation. "Perfect," James declared, stepping back to admire the effect. "The Jensens will be impressed." The fundraiser was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, an opulent affair with champagne flowing freely, and the city's elite in attendance. Victoria performed her role flawlessly, smiling at the right moments, asking interested questions about children and hobbies, making James look good without overshadowing him. Standing at the edge of the grand hall, Victoria watched her husband work the room. He was magnetic, commanding attention effortlessly. She remembered being drawn to that magnetism, feeling special when it was directed at her. Now she was merely part of his orbit, another satellite circling his success. "Mrs. Peterson?" Victoria turned to find an older woman with kind eyes studying her with interest. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but I recognized you from your photography exhibition at the Rothwell Gallery a few years ago. Your work was extraordinary. Such authentic emotion in your images. Do you still photograph?" The question caught Victoria off guard. It had been so long since anyone had seen her as anything but James Peterson's wife. Not really," she admitted. "Life got busy." The woman, who introduced herself as Eleanor Bennett, the museum's curator of contemporary photography, looked disappointed. "That's a terrible shame. You had a unique perspective. Art is how we make sense of the world, Mrs. Peterson. Without it, we're just going through the motions of living." The words lingered long after Eleanor moved on to greet other guests. Victoria found herself touching her camera, abandoned at the bottom of her closet beneath boxes of designer shoes. When had she stopped making sense of her world? Later that night, as their driver navigated through the city streets back toward their penthouse, Victoria gathered her courage. "I met Eleanor Bennett tonight," she said. "She remembered my photography exhibition." James made a non-committal sound, still scrolling through emails. "It made me think," Victoria continued. "I might like to take it up again. Photography, I mean." "Oh, sure," James replied absently. "Whatever keeps you entertained, sweetheart." Entertained, as though her passion was equivalent to a child's hobby. Victoria turned to look out the window, blinking back unexpected tears. "I was thinking of taking a class," she pressed, needing him to engage, to see her, to refresh my skills. James finally looked up, his expression bemused. "A class? You don't need classes, Vicky. If you want to take pictures again, I'll buy you the best equipment on the market." Problem solved. Victoria swallowed the frustration rising in her throat. "It's not about the equipment, James. It's about learning, being around other photographers, getting feedback on my work. Seems like a waste of time when you could just hire a private instructor," he replied, returning to his phone. "But if it makes you happy, go ahead. Just make sure it doesn't interfere with the Wellington Charity Gala next month. Their CEO is flying in specifically to meet us." Us. The word would have warmed her once when she believed they were partners. Now she understood it meant James and his beautiful accessory. At home, while James retreated to his study for another conference call, Victoria found herself drawn to the spare bedroom they used for storage. Buried beneath garment bags and shoe boxes was her old camera bag, dusty but intact. She unzipped it carefully, running her fingers over the familiar equipment inside. The camera still had charge. Victoria raised it to her eye. The action muscle memory, despite the years of neglect. Through the viewfinder, she framed their perfectly appointed living room, all designer furniture and tasteful art, selected by the decorator James had hired when they moved in. She pressed the shutter, capturing the beautiful, empty space. Reviewing the image, Victoria felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of creating, rather than merely existing. She took another photo, then another, moving through their apartment, capturing evidence of her gilded cage. When she reached their bedroom, she caught her reflection in the mirror again. This time, with her camera raised, a hint of life returned to her eyes. She took that picture too. Evidence that somewhere beneath the perfect exterior, the real Victoria still existed. Later, lying in bed while James worked late in his study, Victoria scrolled through her phone, searching for photography classes in the city. A listing caught her eye. Emotional Storytelling Through Photography, taught by renowned photographer Daniel West at the Greenwich Art Studio. The 8-week course promised to help photographers reconnect with their unique vision and capture authentic human moments. Victoria enrolled before she could reconsider, paying the fee with her personal credit card rather than the shared account James monitored. This would be something just for her, a small act of reclamation in a life that had ceased to feel like her own. As she set her phone down, Victoria heard James enter the bedroom. He undressed in the dark, sliding into bed beside her with a tired sigh. Once she would have turned to him, sought connection through conversation or touch. Now they lay side by side, separated by inches that might as well have been miles. "Good night." "James," she whispered, not expecting a response. "Night," he murmured, already drifting toward sleep, unaware of the small rebellion taking root beside him. Victoria closed her eyes, her mind filled with images she longed to capture, stories she needed to tell. For the first time in years, she fell asleep looking forward to tomorrow, to something that was entirely her own. Through the lens, the Greenwich Art Studio was housed in a renovated industrial building, walls of exposed brick and massive windows allowing natural light to flood the space. Victoria arrived early for her first class, her expensive Mercedes looking out of place among the modest vehicles in the parking lot. Inside, 8 easels formed a circle in the center of the room. Photography equipment was arranged on tables along the walls, and black and white prints hung in careful composition, showcasing raw human emotion, joy, grief, love, loneliness. "Those are all incredible," Victoria said to a bearded man adjusting a projector. He turned, revealing intelligent brown eyes and an easy smile. "Thank you. I'm Daniel West, your instructor." Victoria hadn't expected someone so young, perhaps early 40s, or so unpretentious in his worn jeans and simple button-down shirt. There was something refreshingly authentic about him that contrasted sharply with the carefully constructed appearances in her social circle. "Victoria Peterson," she replied, extending her hand. Recognition flickered in his eyes as they shook hands. "The Victoria Peterson whose work I saw at Rothwell a few years back. Your Urban Solitude series was remarkable." Warmth spread through her chest. Someone remembered her work, saw her as more than James Peterson's wife. As other students arrived, Daniel began the class with a simple exercise: photograph something that made you feel alive. For 2 hours, Victoria lost herself in creativity, forgetting the empty penthouse, the neglectful husband, the carefully constructed facade. When Daniel reviewed her work, his feedback was honest but encouraging. "There's hesitation in these images," he observed, "but also hunger. You're on the edge of something powerful, Victoria. Keep pushing." For the first time in years, she felt truly seen. At home, James barely noticed her renewed passion, absently nodding when she mentioned the class. "That's nice, sweetheart. Did you confirm the dinner with the Macmillans this weekend?" But Victoria didn't need his approval anymore. Twice a week, she disappeared into Daniel's class, gradually rediscovering herself through her camera lens. Developing feelings 6 weeks into the course, Victoria's transformation was unmistakable. Her photographs grew bolder, more honest, capturing moments of authentic human connection that had been missing from her own life. "You've found your voice again," Daniel told her after class one evening, reviewing her latest portfolio. "These images speak to isolation within connection, beautiful and heartbreaking simultaneously." Victoria looked up from the prints spread between them. "They're all taken in my home," she admitted quietly. "My beautiful empty home." Daniel's eyes held understanding without pity. "Art is often born from what we're missing," he said gently. Their hands rested inches apart on the table. When Daniel reached over to point out a particular composition, his fingers accidentally brushed hers. The simple human contact, warm, undemanding, sent electricity through her. Victoria couldn't remember the last time James had touched her with such genuine care. "Sorry," Daniel murmured, noticing her reaction. "Don't be," Victoria replied, surprised by her own honesty. The exhibition opportunity came unexpectedly. Daniel selected 3 students to display their work alongside his at a small but prestigious gallery. Victoria's series, titled Golden Cage, and would feature prominently. James finally took notice when Victoria mentioned the exhibition over a rare dinner together. "You're actually serious about this photography thing?" he asked, genuinely surprised. "I thought it was just keeping you occupied." "It's more than a hobby, James. It's part of who I am." His eyes narrowed slightly. "And this teacher of yours thinks you're good enough for a real exhibition?" "Daniel believes in my work," Victoria replied, unable to keep the defensiveness from her voice. James studied her with newfound attention. "Daniel, is it? You've never mentioned his name before." Something in his tone, possessive, suspicious, triggered a realization. For the first time in years, James was actually seeing her. Exposure the week before the exhibition, Victoria stayed late at the studio mounting her photographs. Daniel worked alongside her, their conversation flowing easily between art theory and personal stories. "Your husband's coming to the opening?" Daniel asked casually. Victoria sighed. "He says he'll try, but there's always some emergency at work." "His loss," Daniel replied, handing her another frame. "Your work deserves to be witnessed, Victoria. You deserve to be witnessed." The simple validation brought unexpected tears to her eyes. Daniel noticed his expression softening. Without thinking, he reached out and squeezed her hand gently. Neither heard the studio door open. Neither saw James Peterson standing there, flowers in hand, a rare attempt at thoughtfulness, watching his wife's fingers intertwined with another man's. The bouquet hit the floor with a soft thud. "James," Victoria pulled her hand away instinctively. "I didn't expect you." "Clearly," he replied, his voice cold. His eyes moved from Victoria to Daniel, assessing and dismissive. "I thought I'd surprise my wife, but it seems I'm interrupting." Daniel stepped forward, professional and calm. "Mr. Peterson, I'm Daniel West. I know who you are," James interrupted. "The photographer who's been occupying so much of my wife's time." The drive home was silent until they reached the penthouse. "Nothing happened," Victoria said as the door closed behind them. "Daniel was being supportive, that's all." "Supportive?" James repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "Is that what you call holding another man's hand?" "He touched my hand for 2 seconds. after showing more interest in me and my work than you have in years." "So this is my fault?" James demanded, color rising in his face. "I've given you everything, this home, financial security, a life most women would envy." Victoria laughed bitterly. "Everything except your attention, your respect, your love. When was the last time you asked how I feel? What I want? Who I am beyond being your perfect trophy wife?" James stepped back as if struck. "I love you," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. "No, James. You love having me. It's not the same thing." Refocusing after their fight, Victoria stayed with her sister for 3 days. The distance gave James something he hadn't experienced in years: the genuine fear of losing her. Alone in their penthouse, he wandered through rooms that felt empty without her presence. He found her preliminary exhibition prints in her studio, photographs that told the story of their marriage through negative space and parallel isolation. The images forced him to see what he had been blind to: Victoria's loneliness, her fading spirit, the wall he had built between them with his indifference. On the night of the exhibition, James arrived early. He moved through the gallery slowly, absorbing Victoria's work, each image revealing the woman he had stopped seeing years ago. When Victoria entered with her sister, she froze upon seeing him. "Your work is extraordinary," James said quietly. "It always was. I just stopped paying attention." Victoria studied him cautiously. "Why are you here, James?" "Because I finally understood what I was about to lose." He took a deep breath. "I saw the truth in your photographs, how lonely you've been, how I've failed you as a husband. It took seeing you with someone who actually values you to realize how much I've taken you for granted." "James, please," he interrupted gently. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know words aren't enough, but if you're willing, I'd like to try to truly see you again, not as my wife or an extension of my success, but as Victoria, the remarkable woman I fell in love with." Victoria felt tears threatening. "I don't know if we can find our way back." "Neither do I," James admitted. "But I'd like to try. Really try, with counseling. With time together, with me learning to prioritize what actually matters." Daniel approached, noticing the tension. "Everything okay, Victoria?" James extended his hand. "Mr. West, thank you for helping my wife rediscover her talent. Your guidance has been invaluable." The words cost him, but they were sincere. After Daniel moved on to greet other guests, Victoria turned to James. "This won't be easy. I've changed. I'm not going back to being invisible." "I don't want you to," James replied. "I want to know the woman you've become, if you'll let me." As the evening progressed, James stayed in the background, watching Victoria shine as she discussed her work with gallery patrons. For the first time, he saw her not as a reflection of himself, but as her own light. 3 months later, James sat in the waiting room of their marriage counselor, scrolling through his calendar. Victoria's second exhibition was approaching, and he had cleared his schedule for the entire week. When she emerged from the session, he rose to meet her, taking her hand, not as a possession, but as a partner. "Ready for dinner?" he asked. Victoria nodded, squeezing his hand gently. Their marriage wasn't perfect, might never be, but they were both finally present, seeing each other clearly for the first time in years. The road to healing would be long, but they were facing it together, one honest moment at a time.